Welcome to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we are continuing our look. Fun thing for me to say at AIM's point of sale environment, which is new to version 12. Last week, we explored how the menus work and the ways in which those could be customized. So this week, we're going to check out the flow of a transaction. Now, for those of you who are upgrading from prior versions, we're also going to demonstrate some of the differences you're going to encounter in that switch, just so that you can be aware of those. As always, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and punch those into the questions box here in GoToWebinar, and I will do my best to answer those as we go. We might have some time still at the end, as always, for a little extra Q&A session. So let's go ahead and switch our viewpoint, as always, over to my demonstration monitor. And I think I've been doing this in the last couple of webinars. I'm going to go ahead and turn my webcam off, just so that the focus is 100% on my AIM screen here. It doesn't take up any extra room for my horrible face. So when we're talking about point of sale, as I don't know if you've seen this or not, but basically you always have quick access to point of sale pretty much no matter what menu you're in by default. If you're in modules, or if you're in maintenance or the reports, you might notice no matter what menu we're in, you always have this toolbar available over on the right-hand side, the left-hand side. Now the top button, which kind of looks like a bag of money, is a quick link to point of sale. The button right below that, which kind of looks like a clock, is quick sale. Now, those of you, again, who are coming from version 11 or older, you might recall how quick sale was a direct link to a sales transaction. You couldn't really do anything else in that transaction, but it was a quick way to make a sale to a nondescript customer account. In other words, we weren't tracking the specific customer. We just needed to make a sale, and that was all that there was to it. That's mostly true here in version 12 as well, although even though you start in quick sale, you can get into other types of transactions as well, simply by switching who the customer is. And I'll show you how that works in just a second. But you'll notice if I click into point of sale, it will be asking me, of course, it's popped up over on my other screen here. It'll ask me who the customer is. So now I can actually type in a specific customer account by their name or their phone number or their email. Unlike older versions, you don't have to specify what you're searching by. You don't have to say you're searching by name or by phone or by address or anything else like that. Just start typing in whatever you want to look them up by. AIM will find any matching accounts. Now, if you need to add a customer, you can click the Add Customer button, and that will pop up the Add Customer window, so you can quickly and easily add in a customer. You can also, if you have a scanner that will scan driver's licenses, you can click this button to scan the driver's license, and that will punch in the information from the address and phone number, and well, not the phone number, but name and address and all that stuff right in there, so you don't have to worry about typing it all in. We talk about that in other webinars. I did a quick start video series on covering all of that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The main thing here is, if you either need to add a customer, or if you started with point of sale and the customer says, you know what, don't put me in your system, I just want to make the purchase, you can click this QS button, which will select the quick sale account for this transaction. So either way, I'm now to my point of sale screen. And on the point of sale screen, and of course it's gonna be wonky on me here, but let me see if I can't get this over here. There we go, we'll go with that. With point of sale, either way you get to it, whether you go to the point of sale or the quick sale, this is gonna be your screen. Now on this screen, I just want to point out a few key things here to get us started. On the right-hand side, this is basically your live transaction. Anything that you start to scan, which you'll notice the cursor is blinking away down here at the bottom, anything you start to scan will go into a straight up sales invoice. So if I scan in my good old RT14, you can see it brings up my valve oil at $3.95 plus my tax comes out to $6.32, and it will start to keep a running tab of my transaction. Now at this point, if I'm ready to take a payment on that, I can click the tender button. That takes me to my payment menu. We talked about the menus last week. Check that out, the recording on that, if you want more details on how these menus are unfolded. But I could go ahead and say cash. Let's just take exact change on that. I'll say okay, and I'll hit finalize, and then the sale is done. Quick sale, right? That's basically all there is to it. That is the core concept of a transaction. Let me go ahead and bring the sales receipt over here that I printed on screen so you can kind of see what that looks like. Now, that's the basic gist of it. No matter what you're doing within point of sale, that's the concept. The right-hand side is your live transaction. The left-hand side are any of your customizable menus. Let's go ahead and bring Mike up now for a more specific kind of concept here. Now, while you have a customer account selected, you can take advantage, excuse me, of one or more of these specialty transaction modes that we discussed last week. Now, let's say that the customer wants to put something on layaway. We can click into layaway mode, and you'll notice what happens when I do that. Up here at the top, it's showing both a main and a layaway. And if I go ahead and let's find something other than RT14 valve oil to put on layaway. I don't remember all the SKUs that I've plugged into this thing, so let's just go ahead and find something. Let's say we're going to put, let's put a mouthpiece in there. So not that you would ever typically put a mouthpiece onto layaway, but there we go. So now while we're in layaway mode, we can take a down payment on that using this down payment button over here. Let's say we're going to take $5 down on that. So you'll see now it's showing $29.95 plus the $17.97. I need to check my tax rate. I think it's atrociously high. But you can see it's coming up for a total amount due on this layaway of $47.92. We're going to pay $5 down on that. Now, if we go back to the main, you'll notice that layaway stays as an option up here, and on my main transaction, I'm showing a $5 payment on a new layaway. So that's the kind of the idea here with version 12 versus version 11 or older. For those of you who are coming from those older versions, is unlike version 11 or others, where you had a point of sale environment, but it was kind of made up of this. There was a kind of that toolbar along the top, and then you could click on any of those buttons that kind of opened up the different windows, and you had all these free floating windows all over the place. And then you had to remember, in order to save that, you had to click the save button on the end of that toolbar that no one could ever seem to find where that save button was. Now it's all unified in one right-hand transaction screen. Do you want to give the customer a quote on a future purchase? No problem. We'll click into proposal mode. You see that opens up a third button. Now we can go ahead and let's give them a quote on, let's say, one of these. Well, no, let's do one of these flutes. So we'll go ahead and select the flute, and we're going to give them that quote. Maybe with a little bit of an additional setup fee, so I can go into service labor. Let's say it's going to be a $50 setup on that, so I can add that to the proposal. And once again, if I go take a look at the main point of sale, the main transaction, I have a line item for the layaway. I have a line item for the proposal. There's no dollar amount on the proposal because no money is being exchanged, but it does have a transaction number that I could later on go in and I could pull that proposal into a future transaction if the customer desires to take advantage of that. So that's the whole idea of what a proposal is. It's basically a future quote or a quote for a future purchase. For those of you here in the gun industry, I see a couple of you. This is a great way to give a customer a quote on, say, like a custom build of a sporting rifle that they're looking into purchasing, with the custom upper and the lower and the stock and the sights and the sounds and anything else. I'm not a gun person. I know my way around them a little bit, but those of you who are in attendance, you get the idea. You can give those customers quotes, and you can modify those proposals by basically pulling the proposal into itself. So when you come back into a sale, you can reopen the proposal and you can adjust it. Say if they want to swap out the trigger for something else, or for those of you still here in the music industry, there's a number of you here as well. Maybe you're giving them a quote on a PA build out. So maybe they want to swap out one type of mic for another, or another type of amp, or maybe they want to add an extra 100 feet of microphone cable, or whatever the case may be. A proposal is a great way to do that without tying yourself down to any type of allocations. So you can give them those quotes, and then you can pull that proposal into things like a special order or a layaway, or straight into a sale if you have everything in stock and they're ready to pay it out. Let's talk about what the other modes are for those of you who aren't familiar. So by default, there are kind of, let's see, probably about 7 modes. There's straight up point of sale mode. So point of sale mode is what you default in when you start in point of sale. Basically anything that you scan while you're in regular mode. And I should show this. I'm going to click this little button here, kind of opening up this left-hand panel. And you can kind of see up here, it says I'm in point of sale mode. So while I'm in point of sale mode, anything I scan will go into a straight sales transaction. It'll be considered sold at the immediate time of transacting the sale for the purposes of sales tax and everything like that. And it's out the door, and it's in the ownership of the customer at that point. Now, there are several other modes. Layaway mode is probably one of the most common ones. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a layaway is where a customer is saying, I want to place some money down on a product and I'm going to pay for it over time. When you're in layaway mode, and you'll notice I click back into layaway, either with over here or over here, while I'm in layaway mode, some extra details show up. In this case, there's a promise date. The promise date is basically when the customer needs to pay off the balance of that layaway buy. There's a system variable that adjusts that. It's layaway pay in full, or layaway pay date, or something along those lines. You'll find it in our system variables menu. You can also make an adjustment on that at any point here by clicking the little calendar icon, which is down there by default in the lower left-hand menu. And that will let you adjust that. Basically, you could make whatever selection you want here. Let's say that we're going to give them an extra week, so they need to pay that off by April 1st. So you can do that, and it'll show you the current down payment there as well. By the way, there is also a system variable that controls the ability to do a layaway and not take an adequate amount of a down payment. There's a system variable for that as well. So that's a layaway. Proposal, as we kind of already discussed, is the ability to give a customer a quote on a purchase. Loaner is one of those modes that can really come in handy when it comes to inventory control, and it's kind of underused, but then again, not many places really offer out a lot of loaners. Let's say that you are giving the customer the ability to try something out while their current item is in the shop, or whatever the case may be. A loaner lets you basically say, yep, well, you can take this out and it needs to be due back by a certain return date. Once again, there's a calendar button down here that lets you change that return date. There's no money exchange on a loaner. It's basically saying, yep, we're letting you use this. You need to make sure you bring it back. Now, kind of in that same line, but more for the purposes of a sales tool, is what we call an approval or a demo. When you're in approval or demo mode, this is letting the customer take something home to try out, but for the purposes of demoing it, trying it out, seeing if they like it. There is still a return date in the case of an approval, but and still no money is technically exchanging hands, but you'll notice that there are some extra buttons down here in the corner. So in the case of an approval, in addition to a return date, you can also take a deposit. So the idea of the deposit is they've got some skin in the game. They're making a payment on this. This is technically entirely refundable. But if the customer decides that they like that product and they want to buy it, you can apply this deposit towards the purchase of that item on approval. And along those lines, I don't know if you saw it, but back here in the functions menu, you can pull in an approval in the same way that you can pull in a proposal. So you can pull the approval directly into, again, a sales invoice or a layaway or something along those lines, and then it will convert that item into that type of transaction. So that is what an approval is. A delayed delivery is very similar to a sale. In most cases, this is going to record an item as being sold right away, but it's still considered under on premises of the store. So the customer may or may not own it at that point. There is technically a system variable that controls that. It's called delayed sale. You can toggle whether or not it's considered a sale right away, or if it's considered a sale at the time of what's known as delivery. When the item is considered delivered, that's when it's leaving the store. In other words, it's been picked up or delivered to the customer. Firearm stores will find this delayed delivery mode really handy if you're doing a sale with a cool down period. So in other words, that 7 or 10 day period, depending on varying from state to state, where a customer comes in to make a purchase, but they can't take it home right away. So you can record it as a delayed delivery sale. Then after that time period has elapsed and they come to pick it up, you then mark it as delivered, and that's when it leaves the premises of your store and also for the purposes of your serial acquisition and disposition. That's when it hits the A&D book as being disposed of out of your inventory. So you may find that really handy. Others of those you hear in attendance, like for example, appliance stores. I see 1 or 2 of you here who are in that industry. The customer makes a purchase of an appliance and they're going to ask that it be delivered in a later date. A delayed delivery is a great way to do that because maybe you want to mark a particular model line as being purchased, but not necessarily specify a particular serial number. Maybe the serial number that you initially flagged is way in the back of the warehouse and it's hard to get to. So what you can do is you can flag just the model line as being the target of the item on the delayed delivery. Then when you go to do the delivery, which by the way is not here in point of sale, that's actually something you will find outside of point of sale in the daily posting delivery option. You'll find that in there. So in case you were wondering why I'm not really showing anything with that, it's because it's something that usually happens outside of point of sale itself. But basically when you do that, it didn't specify a serial number before, that's when you will see it ask for the serial number then. And that's when it will actually say that that particular serial number has been sold to the customer. A couple of other modes here, really just one more mode, and then I see some questions coming in. The last one is the short-term rental mode. Now, not everyone will probably have this mode. The button will still be there, but it may pop up and say you need to purchase this module because it is a separate module outside of all of these other modes. But with short-term rental, whatever you put onto this part of the transaction is not going to be marked as sold. Instead, it's going to be marked as out on short-term rental. In this case, you'll usually have both a pickup and a return date. The pickup date will just default to the current date and time. The return date can be specified in a number of different ways. I'll be doing a webinar more in detail on short-term rentals in the future. For now, if you want more info, you can always check out our recorded webinar from a little while ago on that. I'll be doing, like I said, an updated one of that here very shortly. But that way you can flag it as being out on rental. It's not being sold to the customer. It does need to come back. It is being tracked in that manner, and it will track short-term rental revenue versus straight up sales revenue. So you may find that super handy. Other functions that are all still part of point of sale are the ability to open up additional windows or forms within sales invoices, such as open account payments, where you can take payments of those transactions. Those will all basically show up as line items here when you record an OA payment. Let's say I'm going to take $50 down as a new credit since I don't have anything open here. I'll just record that. And once again, you'll see it shows there as a line item. The whole idea here is that this main transaction is basically the sum of all of the activity of the transaction. So you can see everything that's going on and let the customer know that at this point they owe me $61.32, $50 of which is the credit they just put on to the account. $3.95 is the sale of the valve oil plus the tax, $5 down for the layaway down payment, and no amount due for the proposal because it is just a quote. Other things you can do are merchandise returns, returns of short-term rentals, pretty much anything that you would have actually had to do outside of the point of sale environment in prior versions, you can actually bake right into point of sale. I did see one question coming in regarding long-term contracts. So that was Christy, is long-term rental located in point of sale or is that its own thing? And there is a contract menu here. I don't have this all fleshed out, but you could just as easily have a button here for doing a new contract. I don't have any contracts set up in this particular demo system at this time, but you could do that just like you would expect. It'll come up and ask you for the type of contract you're doing, what's going on to the contract, or the terms of payment. When you save that, there will be a line item right here where it will say long-term contract for the amount that's currently taking as your initial down payment. You also had a question on service tickets and sales and rentals and all of those things. And basically, it's all right here. So that was also another question by Christy. So if I'm doing a new service ticket, they're dropping something off for work, I can do that right here. I can put in the details of the item. Let's just say it is an instrument, it's an alto sax, it's made by BMX, because why not? I'm going to put in some service labor here of a cleaning. It's a quantity of 1. It's going to be $50. We're going to save that in there. And then we save that service ticket, and there's the service ticket. I didn't take a deposit on it, so there's no amount due on that, but it will now be its own open service ticket. It has its own reference number there of 1043. I can jump back into it by double clicking on it if necessary. So basically it's all layered right here, and everything that's going on is all right there on that transaction window. Another question that came in, not during this webinar, but in other webinars where I've discussed point of sale, is for those of you who are coming from that earlier version 11 and back, that really liked what we would call the classic point of sale screen. You can still access that by pressing F5 while you're here in point of sale. So F5 will kind of switch that right-hand side into more of the classic invoice layout. You can switch that back and forth at any time with the F5 button. And there is a system variable that controls which point of sale screen comes up by default. I believe it's actually just called classic POS, and you can set that as yes or no. So for those of you who still like that old school feeling, but still take advantage of the modern functionality with having it all on one screen, you've still got that available to you. Kara is asking, how does a delayed delivery ticket show when it prints? Will it say invoice or not until it is delivered? And that is an excellent question, Kara. Technically, you have the ability to say whatever you want it to say. In the maintenance portion of the program, and underneath the general maintenance menu, you can go to what are called the system comments. Every transaction has a receipt type here. And if we take a look just a little bit down here in alphabetical order, here is the delayed delivery. By default, at the top of the receipt, it will say delayed delivery. And those items will still show in your inventory, even if they are considered sold. But You have the ability to customize this however you want. You can have it say whatever you'd like up here on the receipt header. You can put in whatever you'd like in the receipt notes here. And basically there's a receipt type for pretty much every transaction type: sales invoice, layaways. If I go to the L's here, LAY, there's the layaway, both of the initial layaway, the layaway return, layaway payoff. So all of your different receipt types are available here for you to customize. So thank you so much, Kara, as well as Christy, for those questions. Thank you so much. Christy is asking actually one additional question here. When we use F5 in version 11, we see a quick view of customer history, such as what they have open. Is that gone, or is it just in a different location? Once again, an excellent question. Let me bring my point of sale screen back up here. And what you might notice is when I pulled up Mike or any customer as a specific customer, this little window here shows up. It's kind of cut off on my screen. I've got not as big of a screen as I would have liked, but this right here is basically showing anything that's in that open outstanding window. Now, it doesn't pop up right away, but if you click on either this or the account balance button by default up here, that will open up that customer history screen just like you are probably used to. We just don't make it be the first thing that you see. We take you right now into the straight up transaction. And if you need to, you can always access that history from there. You can drill down into all of those options just like before. And in some cases, you can even double click right on the individual line items here to open up detail like that. So in some cases, you can reprint right from here. If I had that service ticket already saved and on their account, I could double click on it to modify it. So you've got a lot of functionality baked into this new customer history screen as well. So thank you so much, Christy, for that question. I appreciate it. So I hope that kind of wraps up what we were kind of talking about here with the different modes. Once again, let me actually just demonstrate something quickly out of here. I'm going to exit this and I'm going to start straight into quick sale, because one of the things I did mention was you could start in quick sale and you're basically just like we see here in the same type of screen. But if I'm ringing up a sale and the customer says, oh, by the way, I'd like to put something on layaway, we can basically take our current point of sale transaction, click on the sold button up here, find or create an account for them, and then start to ring everything up the way we would want to, just like we started in point of sale, except we'd actually started in quick sale. Also, for those of you who are wondering, if you ring something up on a sale and then the customer decides they'd like to convert that to a layaway, one or more of those items, what you can do, rather than deleting all of these out, switching over to layaway mode and adding them back in, is you can jump into that mode, and then it's kind of buried here in the functions menu. By all means, you could move this more to a kind of an upfront area, but one of the abilities here in the functions menu is what's called switching an item mode. By clicking this function, when you're in the mode that you want it to go into, right now I'm in a layaway, I click this switch item mode, this will let me then pull one or more items from other modes into the mode in which I am in. So in this case, I'm taking that valve oil from the sales invoice and I'm converting it to the layaway. So for those of you who started off on a sale and said, nope, I need to switch this to a layaway, now you've got the quick ability to do that. So hopefully this has been helpful. One other question that a lot of people ask me in that conversion from version 11 to 12 is, where is the gift card sale function? Because if you might recall, if you're using our built-in gift card option, there was a button on that toolbar like I was talking about where you would click that, and then it would ask you to scan in the gift card and ask how much was going on to that card. Well, in version 12, and I don't have any in my system here, but all you have to do is just basically be in your sales mode and scan that barcode. AIM will recognize that barcode as a gift card, and it will come up right away at that point and just ask you for the amount going onto that gift card. So no longer do you need a special mode or a special window to make a gift card sale. Likewise, when you are taking a payment and you get to that tender mode, and of course I didn't realize I was not taking any payments, so I'm finalizing that layaway now. But when you get to the point of sale screen or the tender menu, there is a button there by default for e-card, or for those of you who converted, it'll be whatever other methods you are bringing in from version 11 for your gift card sale. Same thing applies there. You can basically just scan the card and then it will ask you how much of the balance you'd like to apply at that point. So hopefully this has been helpful. And what I encourage you to do is explore point of sale, play around with those menus, play around with the modes, mix and match where you find things, check out those functions menus, copy some of those buttons that you might normally find yourself using every day to your main screen. If you need any help with any of these functions, just give us a call. We're always willing to help out on our tech support lines. And that basically wraps up the lineup of webinars here for the month of February. Be sure to check out the upcoming webinars that I've got for March. We're going to be starting to explore some of our Active E functions, and we're going to keep diving into some more of the modules, customers, and I think purchase orders are on the docket for the month of March. If there's any other webinar suggestions, definitely shoot them my way to training@tritechretail.com. I'm always looking for ways to better serve you guys, because without you guys, we still wouldn't be here all of these years. So thank you once again for your attendance and your attention, and we will see you next week, or rather 2 weeks from now. Take care.